fourth day, I believe, sorry, of our wheatgrass. So today is harvest day, basically, of wheatgrass. And in our previous videos, what we were really looking at was the differential in height between these two, our big tray and our small cell pack, where the cell pack had been uncovered a day early, and after that first day, when we looked at the second day, had considerably more growth. And so the question was, like, is there an advantage to uncovering early in that case? Because we saw there, once they both had some growth, that it was quite a bit further ahead. But as we look at harvest day here, these trays are indifferentiable. I cannot tell one from the other. I really can't. This one might potentially be a tad taller, but it's also actually been growing in a spot where it gets a little less light, so should be reaching more. So I would actually expect it to be even taller. So the lesson here actually is to really not get too caught up in our crops midway through a cycle. There's a lot we can draw from a crop, how a crop looks midway through a cycle. So getting a sense of, is it on track to be mature when it's supposed to? Like, are there growth problems? Because as we've seen, when you uncover at different times, as an example, it can change your growth pattern. So it might start off quicker in the beginning and then slow down near harvest time, or vice versa. So I'm going to do some more formal trials on this in coming weeks. But for the moment, just wanted to sort of, again, summarize those 3 days, and that we had this one, this one that was taller in the beginning. It was because it was uncovered earlier, and in the end, the other tray caught up, and they end up being about the same. So one thing I'd like to look at when I'm growing stuff is I like to look at the roots. And we spend a lot of time focused on yield and height and productivity, but we get to know these things better by getting to know the plant both above and below the soil. And so one major factor that's in difference here, which is potentially a contributing factor in rates of growth, is this one is just in a shallow 1.25 inch tray, and this is in like a 2 inch deep cell pack. So there's a lot of soil for the roots to go down there. And we can see in here, I'm gonna pull that out of there. So we see there's a lot of root growth, and there's so much root growth that it's girdling at the bottom that quickly. So the roots grow down, they hit the bottom, and they start to splay outwards. Whereas typically in a more natural setting, the roots would just continue to work their way downward, which is a really good drought resistance strategy. So there's the bottom there. I see a little bit of some little clumping, a little bit of browning. So a few things going on, but that's often the case. Nothing that's too concerning there. There's the side profile there. Now, if we go to take a look, I'm just going to move this guy out of the way. When we go to take a look at this tray, hopefully we got a decent view here. So first of all, it's a lot of effort to pull this out. And what's happening is the roots are actually growing very much through the drainage holes in the bottom of the tray here. So when I pull that up, you can see fairly well. I'm going to get a little bit of extra light in here. Trusty old headlamp. There we go. So you can actually see here the little bits that were growing through the holes. So you can see the roots' tendency to grow down. But this is really thick, and like this soil is like a single unit. It's all being really well held together by these roots, whereas the other one, that soil was still a bit loose and could sort of fall apart. That won't last long, but so this one we can see a lot more root restriction there. So I would actually expect like more growth early and then less growth later with this one, and which actually may also be the case. I'm also looking. You see this browning in here, and you often see some sort of root browning with the wheatgrass, which looks like some sort of fungal issue. And again, it's something I've never worried too much about because I haven't seen it reflected in the top. Now, sometimes I'll see little patches of mold on top, and I'll often see like it'll be on the seed, and then I'll see a corresponding spot below. So there are some correlations there, but not always. Sometimes there's mold on top and nothing in the roots, and sometimes you can see quite a lot of browning or rotting in the roots without any effect on the top growth. So lots of different patterns to look out for. The thing is to learn, like, what should I be worrying about what should I be trying to adjust, trying to change, trying to account for. My general strategy with disease is hoping that it'll run its course. And usually it'll do that with very, very good airflow, making sure things are not overwatered, making sure they're right in the right temperature conditions. It's hard to adjust things like your sowing rate if you've sowed much too thickly, so it's hard to increase airflow in those situations. But there are a few things we can do. So that is our look at comparing our two types of wheatgrass there. This one that was uncovered early, the big tray that was uncovered on its regular time. We can see by harvest time that they end up being the same height. So now what we're going to do in our next experiment series will just be multiple situations, all in the cell pack. So they're all in the same growing situation, same soil depth. And we will do a bunch of sowings. So one that doesn't get covered at all, one that's covered for just a few hours, and then we'll do other increments of like 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, and see what happens to those growth patterns over the course of their life cycle. That might be a good one to do some time lapse as well, so we'll see if we can get that set up. So that's our final look at wheatgrass growth patterns, and I'll be back with some other stuff soon.